Hello, everyone. I'm Jim Garrison. I want to welcome you to this session of Humanity Rising as we begin our second of 5 programs on intuitive interspecies communication. I want to start today by saying that I just got off literally a few minutes ago from a 2-hour call launching our disclosure diplomacy coalition. We have been working on UAP disclosure, as all of you know, and been focused, as I am here in Washington, D.C., on the U.S. government. And given my experience in global affairs dating back when Jim Hickman, who's the chairman of the Ubiquity Board, and Harriet Crosby, a very, very good friend of mine, were engaging in what we called then citizen diplomacy with the government of Mikhail Gorbachev and the government of Ronald Reagan. We were integrally involved in the machinations of government as the Gorbachev proposals surfaced about ending the Cold War, as those were slowly accepted, as the Cold War ended, as the Soviet Union collapsed, as the neocons in the United States decided, rather than to make the peace, to begin a 30-year campaign to destroy Russia, given the fact that the Soviet Union had broken up, which led to the expansion of NATO and eventually to the war in Ukraine. And right when they had seized all of Eastern Europe and were going to also seize Ukraine and emasculate Russia by seizing Crimea, the Russians struck back. And that's the war in Ukraine. There was a number of us, a very small handful, that were engaged at intimate levels, at high levels of government. And what we learned from that experience is that citizen action is actually essential in enabling the governments to do the obvious. So when we come to the disclosure of the most closely held secret in human history, information concerning alien visitation on Earth, called non-human intelligences by the US government, commonly referred to as extraterrestrials, we're dealing with an issue in which the governments, and not only the US government, but Russia and China and Brazil, India, every government, has repressed the information because they don't want the people of the world to know that the governments are not really in charge and they can't really defend their airspace. But this information is now coming out. So what we've been doing at the New Paradigm Institute, and I've been the one principally accountable, volunteered, in fact, thought of the idea, is to replicate what we did in the 80s and 90s in the Soviet American period, the tensions of the Cold War, to apply that to what we're now calling disclosure diplomacy. And today, just a few minutes ago, we ended our inaugural call. And we had people representing Sweden, Holland, Canada, the United States, Thailand, Italy, Australia, Britain, Brazil, Argentina, Uruguay, Dominican Republic, Portugal, France, and Norway. all on a Zoom call, all getting to know each other, all talking about what they're doing to support their government processes toward disclosure, all thrilled to be part of something that is now a global movement for disclosure, in which the citizens are going to play an actively catalytic role in forcing our governments to disclose the evidence that we are not alone, that extraterrestrial intelligence and civilizations far more advanced than we are have been on planet Earth, and there's evidence of contact and communication. I raise this because before too long, every human being is going to have to learn ET. I want everybody to just pause and take that in for a moment. We humans, in our hubris, in the ignorance of our arrogance, think that we're the only thing that really matters, and that we can promiscuously use resources. We can wantonly destroy the environment. We can viciously kill each other like they're doing in Gaza. Or just today, it was announced that by the United Nations that upwards of 500,000 Palestinians have been forced to evacuate southern Gaza for northern Gaza, where the Israelis are shelling. The UN said this is the largest mass migration of human beings in the shortest period of time in modern history. We think we're the game, but with a recognition that we are now in the presence of advanced extraterrestrial beings who've been observing us as the rest of nature has been, and have been telling us systematically, globally, that the human race is out of control and we have to stop destroying the environment, stop destroying each other, and particularly stop our nuclear weapons. We're now coming into a time when we're going to be confronted that we not only are not alone, but we have to fundamentally change. I said yesterday that, in my view, the single most foundational cause of the escalating human violence in the world is that we're increasingly disconnected from the living ecosystem. And right at the moment where our disconnection has compelled us to a massive act of self-destruction through climate change and all the global wars, et cetera, we're being visited by extraterrestrials. The ignition of our nuclear weapons sent alarm bells through this quadrant of the galaxy. So we're all going to be learning ET before we know it. And that's why this program on intuitive interspecies communication and the opportunity to engage in rigorous academic study of the mother tongue is of critical importance to every human being on the planet. All of us need to be learning how to communicate with other species. And it doesn't matter whether it's your pet dog or your pet cat or the parrot or the birds or the plants, the orchids, the whatever life form that you feel drawn to is both observing you, blessing you, and is open to intelligible communication. All of nature is communicating with all of nature. It's only the human race that's out of that communication loop. So learning the mother tongue, learning how to commune and intelligibly communicate is essential, because it's the same skills that we heard about yesterday, we're going to hear about all this week, that are required to communicate intelligibly with the extraterrestrials. It's all one. Life, consciousness, compassion is all one. And so as the movement toward disclosure globalizes, it is my deepest hope and prayer that working with the Animaltalk Africa and all kinds of organizations like the White Lion Protection Trust and other people you're going to hear this week, we can also be learning the mother tongue. What a wonderful thing it would be. Just imagine if millions of people around the world were learning the mother tongue and began to communicate with the trees, began to communicate with the waters, and began to communicate with the extraterrestrials. That would create a revolution in human consciousness that no government could deny. And unless and until we do that, the governments are going to maintain their control, and the governments are going to maintain their momentum towards self-destruction. In my mind, it's that simple, that fundamental, that urgent. So thank you, everyone, for joining Humanity Rising. This is a very exciting week, particularly for me, as I told everyone yesterday. And I want to now invite Wynter Worsthorne back to the program. She's the convener of the week, and she's going to just spend today telling us a lot more about Animaltalk Africa, the aspects of interspecies communication from the point of view of intuition, a faculty that every single one of us has. And she'll be talking more about this first of its kind academic program between Animaltalk Africa and Ubiquity University, leading to graduate degrees, master's, and PhD degrees in intuitive interspecies communication. So Wynter, thank you so much for everything you've done. You're one of the pioneers of human consciousness, my friend, and we're honored to have you with us.
Thank you so much, Jim. I'm really honored to be here. Absolutely honored. And just to let people know a little bit about what I'm going to be talking about. Well, you've already explained what I'm going to be talking about, but I thought, yesterday we had Linda Tucker from the Global White Lion Protection Trust, and her and I shared the stories of our journey together, communicating with the lions and the other nature species in the heartlands. But today I wanted to really give people a feel of how this works, how we can all consciously do this. We all are in communication at all times. Nature is in communication with us at all times. But to do it consciously, to be aware of how we are communicating, is something that we can actually learn and practice. So that's what I thought I'd share with everyone today, and then just people can get a feeling for how I teach and the courses that I'm offering as well. So thank you for this opportunity. And just to, the rest of the week, we're going to have other guests on that communicate with all beings, including elements, trees, plants. So there is no limit to this way of communication. As you correctly say, it is the mother tongue. So what I thought, I'm going to share my screen, and what I thought I'd really like to do is open with a very short grounding, connecting meditation so everyone can get a feel for how this works and how we can be centered in the space of the heart field. So before we go into the details, let's everyone just make yourself comfortable. You can close your eyes or you can rest them on this landscape, which is a picture of a place not far from where I am sitting now in South Africa. It's a place called the Addo Elephant Reserve in the Eastern Cape of South Africa. And this picture was taken when I visited there last year, with this whole herd of elephants coming down to drink in formation, and just the sense of solidity and connection between them was palpable. And I'm hoping that you can feel it too as we move into this heart field. So just feel your bodies relax into the chair or the seat that you're sitting on. Feel your feet firmly on the ground and that great connection with Mother Earth, our home. Feel the wonderful support that she gives us in every way. And as you feel your body relax into the earth, take your focus on your breath, taking a good few deep in-breaths and out-breaths. Now on your next in-breath, become aware of a rose gold sparkling colored light surrounding you, surrounding everything. And see this light as representing the frequency of unconditional love, Mother Nature's unconditional love. And start breathing it in. Breathe it into your heart space, that space in the center of your chest, next to your heart. Breathe it in so it fills this heart space and starts cleaning and clearing any anxieties, any worries, anything that doesn't need to be there right now at this time. Grief, pain. Let it be transformed by this unconditional love. And as you feel that transformation happening in your heart space, feel and see that field of light around your heart expanding throughout your body. And then become aware of your own unconditional love for Mother Nature, for the earth. Perhaps you're thinking of someone, a particular individual that you love no matter what. Feel it in your heart space and let it mingle with Mother Nature's unconditional love. And start expanding that heart field throughout your body. And let it extend beyond the boundaries, the physical boundaries of your body. into the environment around you, and let it expand even further into the nature that is around you, the landscapes. This is the field of connection. See it expanding, and as this field expands, acknowledge the connection between you and all that is. Every grain of soil, every plant, every insect, bird, animal species, water bodies. Let it expand beyond the county or the country that you're in, beyond the human boundaries, into the seas, connecting with all the sea beings. There's no limit to this connection. Feel your connection to these elephants that you see on screen right now. Send them this absolute unconditional love. You can expand this field deep into the center of the earth and right up to the stars. And yes, to other galaxies. Everything and anything is possible when we are in this heart field. Feel the connection with everyone who is in this gathering at this time. And let us be in this field of love together as we explore the possibilities of intuitive interspecies communication with all beings. Just be still now for a couple more breaths as we stay in this field, but feel grounded at the same time. So once more, feel the soles of your feet connecting with the surface of Mother Earth. Take a few deep breaths in and out and become aware of your body. Come back into this gathering consciously. And if your eyes are closed, just open them in acknowledgement of these beautiful elephants and their landscape. Okay, so I'm going to now work through a series of slides just to explain while you're in this heart field. And don't worry if you don't catch every word of mine, because I'm wanting you to feel the energy and understand this concept deep in your heart space. So, as Jim's been talking about, I teach Intuitive Interspecies Communication, which used to more commonly be known as animal communication. But as the years have gone by and people have become more aware and conscious, we've realized that it's not just animals, other animals that we can communicate with, but all species and actually all beings. And we know that this is an innate ability that we all have, and we are doing all the time. But why should we learn to be conscious in our communication with nature? So there are many different reasons. Of course, some of them are really obvious. To understand the needs of other beings. What I find particularly useful in my work is helping other animals to understand the human rules and boundaries that we force upon them, because so often we are asking animals to behave in a way that is not natural to them, and to be able to explain to them why they need to behave in this way? Why does a lion need to be kept in a protective, fenced-in area when they want to roam the territories? And why are we asking them, these wild creatures, and even our animal companions at home, to behave in a certain way just because it makes us uncomfortable and fearful? And what is amazing is the animals will listen and they will understand, because they want to assist us, they want to work with us, they want to be in harmony with us. So they show us how to live harmoniously with all other beings. I've said here, including insects and wildlife and plants. My teachings also, well, the animals' teachings, it's not my teachings. Everything that I share comes to me from the animals and from my experience communicating with them. We learn how to understand ourselves as well as the other. It's a process in developing intuition and trust in ourselves. It's an experience of the energy of the world. I call it life energy, love energy, and how it really works. And it's about embarking on a spiritual journey. This is not a mental journey. This is really a spiritual journey where we start with the very basics and then a whole new world opens to us. It really is so exciting to start. So whether you are very experienced as an animal communicator or tree plant communicator, or whether you're just beginning, the shifts that are happening now are so incredibly exciting. And I want to take you back to the beginning, where there are so many different stories, creation stories with different cultures, but they all start with a place, a space where humans and animals were not separate. We were all part of this incredible cycle of life. We were preyed upon. We were part of the food chain. We were not, and still are not, the apex predators, much as we would like to think we are, or some of us would. We lived and thrived together with mutual respect and unconditional love. And then, because it's Animaltalk Africa, I'm going to bring in some of the ancient African wisdoms and stories. And Mkhulu Vusimazulu Credo Mutwa, he is he's an ancestor in the ancestral realms, guiding us from above. And he tells the story of the beginning of time. And Jim, I think you're going to be really interested in this because of the ET connection. And his story, his creation story, is just like that we were all living in harmony, and that humans could communicate with each other without the spoken word, without human language as we know it now. A man would call his wife from the field just by visualizing her face and smelling the warmth of her skin. And then she would know that he was reaching out to her and would respond. And when man wanted something to eat, he would not just go and pick fruit from a tree. He would ask permission and wait for the fruit to drop. When man needed meat occasionally, he would go and pray in ceremony, ask permission for the animals, if it was right and true that one would give themselves up. And there was this beautiful connection. And I believe even now, today, the predator and the prey have those same agreements, that we have turned into something aggressive and violent. But there is that same connection that was the original connection. And then something terrible happens. In all these stories, something happened to create this great separation. And nobody really knows what it is. We can theorize until we're blue in the face. But Baba Credo Mutwa's story is that this terrible something that happened was race of aliens came to planet Earth, which was the most beautiful planet in the whole universe, in the galaxy. And they wanted to control the species on the planet. And they saw perhaps a vulnerability in the human species. And they communicated with the humans and said, if you do not obey us, something really terrible will happen. But if you do what we tell you, we will reward you with something incredibly special. And so the humans, feeling fear for the first time, decided to obey the Shatoli, they were called. And the gift that they received was the spoken word, the human language. And the story goes on to say that was what divided us, because it wasn't just one language. It started separating into 100 different tongues. And fear and the spoken word were the start of this great separation. And then, of course, we talk about energy. And the opposite of fear is love. The opposite of love is not hate, it is fear. And if we think about the frequencies of those emotions and what it does, love connects and fear disconnects. And I'm going to tell a story that is actually printed in Linda's book, The Mystery of the White Lions, that Baba Credo Mutwa tells about his encounter with a man-eating lion when he was very young, and he was working in middle of Africa, putting up safari tents for colonial people coming to go on safari in Africa. And he was busy putting up this one tent, and suddenly he got pounced on by this old lion. And the lion was pinning him down, and the saliva was dripping into his face from the lion's mouth. And he knew this lion was going to kill him, and he just went into a panic. And as he started panicking, the voice of his grandfather, who was also an African high Sanusi, which is the highest form of shaman, medicine person that you can attain, and which is what Credo Mutwe is. And he heard these words, and to just calm down, and he realized he needed to stay very calm. And as he stayed calm and started going into his stillness, the lion got up and walked away, and he thought, oh, wow. And he started rushing to get away. The lion came back and pinned him down once more. And then he went directly back into that heart space, and he communicated with the lion. He said to the lion, I love you. You are my brother. Please do not hurt me. I love you. I do not have claws or teeth like you. I cannot harm you. You are my brother. And he says he communicated not with words, but in his mind. And with that, the lion got up and walked off. And Baba Mutwa passed out and woke up in hospital with a broken leg. And at the end of that story, he says, if you can look at into the face of your fears, like you look into the face of your lover, all the ills of the world will be healed. And, you know, everything that is bad in this world, if we want to judge or calling something bad, becomes out of fear. I truly, truly believe that. Just a brief thing about energy. Most people know of the work that Masaru Emoto started, and more work is being done around that. Messages from Water, where he took frozen droplets of water that had been exposed to different energies, like thoughts about I hate you and I want to kill you. And if you look at the picture, the image on the screen, can you see the little human there? And isn't that worrying that the energy I hate you, I want to kill you is represented by man? Perhaps are we the only species that think like that, where the rest of nature, I love you and thank you, forms this incredible, beautiful crystal. That is the power of our thoughts and energy, and everyone's thoughts and energy, not just ours. So I'd love to take you through the basic steps of IIC as we know it now. And before I do, I want to speak about this giraffe. And he was an old giraffe that I met when I was with a group in the Kruger National Park, the biggest national park in South Africa. And I was teaching my workshops, and one of the exercises was to just be with the animals, connect with them by sending love and receiving information back. And the whole group got something very similar. And the message was, we know that the connection is about love, but please do not just send love. We need to send clean love. So that was quite shocking to a lot of people, but it made sense when you think about all the clutter and stuff that we carry in our hearts, that when we send out waves of love, or what we think is unconditional love, but we haven't actually centered ourselves and grounded ourselves, we are also putting all our stuff into the energy field. So that is why we're in our grounding meditation, I asked you to breathe in that rose gold energy to clear and clean any pain, grief, negativity that you may be holding in your heart just for this moment. And we do that while we are preparing to make the conscious connection with another being. It's really important to set our intention before we do this. Sending clean love, ask permission to start engaging in a conversation, because we can actually have a conversation with another species. When we send information, it's really important to send mental images and words. Nature, other beings communicate or pick up our energy and our feelings through what we know are called quantum holograms, a mental image, because before we have a thought, we have a mental image, and that is what we are sending out. I'm going to explain that a little bit more later. Receiving information is being open to everything and anything that comes, and that means images, feelings, emotions, words, sounds, smells, taste, on an intuitive level. Observe what's happening to your body when you're in that state of connection. And then you start becoming used to how you start connecting. Really important to give thanks and when you end the communication. So, this image is how I see the connection and how it was shown to me by a cat called Gorgeous. And she showed me that the bridge of love, which I was taught by my human teacher, is not just a straight heart-to-heart bridge, but it is a connection that connects all that is through the heart. And then we focus on each other to communicate. I hope that all makes sense. We want to send and receive information effectively. And if you think about how we are conditioned to speak to others, not just other animals, but other humans, everyone, we have been conditioned to say no all the time. Do not do this. Do not do this. No, how dare you? And the universe actually doesn't understand that. Because if I have to tell you, do not think of a pink elephant with wings. If you are thinking of a pink elephant with wings, walk out of this meeting right now. And I can tell you right now, the moment I say pink elephant with wings, that's my version. I always love throwing that one in. This might be really basic, and I'm just using a very basic example here is when we ask our animals, or animal beings, not our animals, but wildlife, insects, anyone, to not do something, we are sending an image of them doing exactly that. So when you are saying, do not scratch the furniture to your cat, we are seeing them doing exactly that. It's when our fears come in and we say, do not, don't go into the road, it's dangerous. We're seeing them going into the road. What we need to do is tell them what we wanted them to do. So the very simple example is, please scratch your scratch post. Scratch your scratch post. That'll make life so much easier for everyone. Please stay in the boundaries of the garden where you are safe. We go on to, there's more methods of working with danger and things like that, which we don't have time to go into, but I cover that all very extensively in my course. The sending of the information is really the easy side, because animals are always connecting with us. Animals are always listening. They're always listening. They are in tune with us. They don't have to meditate and clear their hearts and get onto the same wavelength. That is their way they are at all the times. All of nature is working on this frequency of connection. That's what I believe, and that is what I've been shown. So listening to the needs of others and receiving information is more difficult because we are so full of fear and being conditioned not to believe ourselves, not to trust ourselves. The process is very, very simple. To set the intention, ask permission, open as you connect in that heart field. Be aware of that first thing that comes to you. And we all communicate and receive information in different ways. I very much work on images. I'm quite a creative, artistic person. So that is my language. It is my language of images and sort of moving images, videos in my mind, and emotions as well. So I will feel an animal's emotion quite quickly. And I also sense physical pain or awareness of their physical bodies in my own body, which can be very, very helpful when you're wanting to find out what is going on in an animal's body when they can't show what is happening physically. You can ask open questions, which is, an open question is, how are you? Show me how you're feeling today, rather than are you happy? Because that's a yes or a no. Then you have to start digging deeper and deeper. If it's no, then, what's making you unhappy? And then you start getting into the details. Always trust and always express gratitude. So the next image might be a little bit graphic, because I want to share a story about a hyena that was caught in a snare. And this covers a lot of what I'm talking about, how we send information, how we receive information. So this wonderful spotted hyena was actually at the Global White Lion Protection Trust. He came up to what we call a camera trap or a wildlife camera showing, it's as if he knew that to get help, he needed to show himself on this camera. And he literally, if you can see my video of me, he literally went like this to the camera, showing this horrible poacher's snare that was, you can see, cutting right into his neck. If left, he would have died a really slow, horrible death. So everyone scrambled to try and get him help, and the best way was a what they call a trap cage, which we use for all sorts of wildlife and even feral cats. To it's baited with meat, and then the animal walks in, and this cage comes down to, as they step onto a certain part of the cage. And he would not go in, night after night after night. He, they were despairing. It was up to a week, and we knew he wanted help. Everything was there ready. I was there with a group again, with the White Lion Leadership Academy, and we were communicating with him to, if you need help, go into that dark space. He'd come through every night and look in, and he was not trusting this. Something was stopping him from going in. And so I connected, asking him. So when you're sending information, you kind of wanting them to behave, especially when it's in service to them, when you know you can help them if they just take this one action. But he wasn't. And I was wondering why. What is it? What is it that's stopping him? And when I asked him, I said, what is the reason? We really want to help you. All you need to do is go into this cage and you will be released. You will be helped. And first of all, he showed me pups, his family, that he was worried about. Secondly, he showed me a fear of death. And I reassured him that he would definitely be helped. He wasn't so bad that he wouldn't be helped. But then I realized that he was confused. He wasn't convinced. I could pick that up. He really was not convinced. Then I realized the group of people that were setting up the trap, there was a group of volunteers at the project at the time, young, sort of 20-something, some teenagers, and they were not communicating the same message. So I spoke to them all and I said, what are your concerns? What are your fears? And they all came out saying, well, we're really scared that he's going to die. And we're really scared that he's not going to make it out alive. And we don't want him to go into a trap just to be killed. They didn't want to take that responsibility. And he was picking this up. So that was where the confusion was. So I spoke to these people and I said to them, if you can think of it, even if for some unimaginable reason, the vet finds that he is too damaged to save, and then there'll be a release. So whatever reason whatever the outcome, the positive outcome will be freedom, release from this agony that he is experiencing right now. And they finally got it. The next day, he went into the trap, he got treated, and these are images of him being released, happily going back into the bush. And then about a month later, he came back to the camera. And unfortunately, I don't have an image of this, but he came back to the managers of the property and showed his family with pups. So that is such a beautiful story that I wanted to share with you. And just to talk about the common fears of when people enter into this work, it is not trusting yourself, which is our sort of inheritance from our cultures. Too much responsibility. You know, am I going to be, if I hear what the animals need, that means I'm going to have to do something about it. And too much knowing about their pain and suffering, that it might be too much for us to handle. I see that, I hear that so often. I could never do the work you do, it's too painful. But what's more painful is if you feel the pain and you don't do anything about it. That for me is more painful. So the benefits and the connection is being able to really help transform situations. And through that transformation, there is so much joy and peace. You know, just seeing that we're able to help that one individual. Imagine when we can help herds of animals, when we can help families, when we can help the whole of nature, landscapes to transform. We can find that balance in nature and the balance within ourselves. It's really worth feeling that pain for a little while because we are able to transform it with love. So we can transform all these fears with that energy of love. Transforming the not trusting to trusting, taking responsibility, and really quoting Andrew Harvey here, who I know is in the faculty of Ubiquity University, and how he speaks about in his sacred activism work, breaking your heart open to heal yourself and to heal others. Breaking our hearts open to really feel and be able to do this transformation work. And this transformation work for me has gone on to another level of transformation, and I call it heart work. Heart energy achieving real transformation, where we receive guidance from Mother Nature to transform our own fears by doing that exercise that I showed you this morning. But even if you really feel that there's a fear that you can't let go, acknowledge that fear. See it, feel it, understand it, and then ask Mother Nature to transform it with love. And when we are talking about transformation in landscapes and paradigms and situations like war in Gaza, we want to visualize a positive outcome, and we co-create a new situation with Mother Nature. That's a whole other subject, which we're not going to have time to go into. But I go back to that beginning. Can we still communicate without words? Can we still live in harmony with others, with all of nature? Can we live and thrive together with mutual respect and unconditional love? And I truly believe we can. And I've experienced it in so many different ways. And through the next few days, you're going to be hearing so many stories and so many ways how this is possible and how this work is expanding beyond our imagination. So we are experiencing a paradigm shift as we speak. So I'm thrilled that everyone is involved. Everyone here is involved. So many more people are understanding this and wanting to be involved. So that is my bit. I've just shared the different websites that you can learn more about everything. And I'm going to stop sharing now and hopefully open up to discussion and ask Jim if he wants to come on board there as well. Thank you, everybody, for listening to that long-winded presentation.
Thank you, Wynter. Thank you so much. Your story of the coyote reminded me of something that happened to me when I was a little boy. I was the son of a missionary, and we were in Taiwan. And this was in the 1950s, so it was very rural. And one day, a man just knocked on our gate, and he had a little monkey in a bag. And the monkey had a wire around his neck. He was a little monkey, and they had put a wire around when he was a baby, and then not expanded it as he'd grown. So the wire had cut into his neck, and it was all infected and pussy. And my father took one look at the monkey and said, no, thank you. No, thank you. And was waving the man on his way. And us kids saw the little monkey and were, full of concern and pulled on our father's pant legs and said, "Oh, Daddy, please, 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 please." And my father was kind of overwhelmed by his children wanting to help this little monkey. So he very, very hesitatingly said okay and paid the guy a small fee that he was asking for the monkey. And the man that was selling the monkey was astonished that these kind of stupid white people would take an obviously diseased, ill monkey, and it went happily on his way. And then my father did something very tender. He just kind of cradled the monkey, and us kids kind of huddled around, and the monkey got really still, and he says, "We're going to help you now." And he had me run and get a pair of pliers, and we held the monkey, and my father took the pliers and slowly released the wire from around the little monkey's neck, and put little salve on it, and then we put a little bandage on it. We were all and we didn't know what to do with it. So we had a big kind of a banyan tree in the backyard. This was out in Taiwan, and we put the little monkey in a box, and we got a little banana and gave it a banana, and it was very still for a couple of days and didn't really move and didn't eat much and didn't drink much. But then we noticed it was beginning to eat one of the bananas and so forth. And then probably 3 or 4 days later, we noticed that it was out of the box, and it had climbed up the tree. And so we were all out. We thought we'd lost the monkey. It was clearly wild, and it was now going to scamper out. We were only in this little village. It was going to scamper out in the wilderness and be gone. And then we called my dad and told him what was happening, and he came and joined us looking up the tree, and the monkey saw my father. And when he saw my father, he came down the tree immediately and came to my father's feet and put his hands together and just bowed his head. It was one of the most extraordinary moments. In fact, I get emotional remembering. And then he went back up the tree, and then he didn't leave. So all of a sudden, we had a pet monkey on our hands. It wasn't in a cage, but the monkey bonded with people that he knew were going to protect him. And we called him Jacques. And he stayed for a number of years, and then he one day just wandered off back into the wilderness. But the story you were telling about the hyena is such a precious story, because it's an indication that if we would only radiate compassion, that these wild animals, they're not really wild at all. They're just living their lives as we're living our lives. And as they sense danger, it's so extraordinary that Emoto, when he intended into the water, hatred, violence, and destruction, out comes a human being. That's what we represent to nature. And so they're wild, but they're only wild in relationship to us, not to each other. And I'm also struck by your hyena story, that not only was he communicating with you, but he was picking up on the kids that were not particularly focused and were thinking, oh, he's just going to die, and all the other things of simply the immature mind. And once you interceded with them and kind of straightened out their thinking process, he realized that now he was in a safe space. And in the safe space, he could just surrender to the healing process, and then feel safe enough to bring his whole family. Normally, the wild will protect their pups to the death against any potential predator. So I just wanted to appreciate that story, and I just would invite you, if there's any other stories of that kind, because so much truth and wisdom is communicated through stories.
Yeah, and I love that story of the monkey, and what struck me about the story is that it's the children, you and your siblings, saved that monkey. Your dad only did that because of you, and the children know this. We are born knowing this, and we get conditioned out of our love and into fear mode. So thank you for sharing that. And a story that comes to me, and it's not really, it's about, it's an elephant that is alone in the zoo that I've very recently been asked to communicate with, because there are plans. He is going to be released finally. And the vet's looking at, he's going to be taken into freedom, and the vets have been looking at his condition, his bodily condition, and they're very worried about his feet. And there was a whole lot of debate about whether he's going to be able to walk on rough, the bush felt land, or are they going to have to create smooth sort of grass that he's been used to at the zoo? And when I asked him about this, I was with him in the zoo. It was very, very sad. It was very difficult to actually keep centered and not go into the grief, because it was all just so shocking. But he showed me, he said his feet are damaged, not because of the earth, but because he is lacking the frequency of love from his family, his other elephants, that there are no other elephants around. He was in the middle of a city center that was a very, very dodgy part of town where the zoo is situated now. And there weren't elephants I know they communicate over hundreds of miles, but wow, the closest elephant to him would have been the other elephants in the neighboring city zoo. So that to me was also, responding to nature's love. And if we can connect with that nature's love, imagine the healing that can occur on so many different levels as well. I just needed to share that for some reason. It was coming to me.
Well, that opens up the question that Dana Tomasino's asking about, whether in your experience, animals can communicate in concepts. And I think what you just told was that the these animals are capable of quite sophisticated communication.
Mm.
You know,
Definitely.
my feet aren't soft because I'm on grass. My feet are soft because I'm not able to communicate and receive the love of the other elephants in my community. I mean, that's a pretty sophisticated communication. That sh
Yeah.
that shows real self-awareness for a
And
start.
it's something that us humans are only just starting to connect our
Yeah,
emotional well-being with our physical well-being. Louise Hay and Caroline Mace have been speaking about this for a number of years now, but people still don't get it. And the animals know. They just
yeah,
know.
yeah,
Nature knows.
yeah.
Yeah.
Now, to talk to us a little bit about your training program, I want to make sure that people have a sense of, if they want to do this joint Animaltalk Africa ubiquity certification and degree program, just walk us through
Okay.
what, so they register,
Yeah,
okay?
so they
Then
register
what
on my,
happens? Tell us what happens.
okay, so there's my Learn site, which is where I host my three core courses, which is the Introduction to Animal Communication, the Intermediate course, and then Practitioner Certification. So you do need to go through all three courses. The
Yeah,
introduction is from the very basics, but it goes in depth. I mean, I don't, many introduction courses don't go as deep as this particular one does. We have mentors, we have student assistants, we have group calls, regular group calls with me, regular practice sessions. So, because the only way you're going to start trusting yourself is by practicing with live cases. And then the intermediate course is more about becoming familiar with how you as an individual communicate your feelings and emotions, how to sort of raise your own consciousness to match that of the other beings in a very particular way. So finding your way of taking this work forward. And then the practitioner course takes you into actually starting to become a professional animal communicator, interspecies communicator, where you submit case studies. So each course is full of modules where there's reading material, there's assignments that you have to submit. It's all online, it's all set at your own pace. But you can start at any time and take as long or as short a time as you need to. But the end result is a certificate to say that you have completed all the practitioner certification, so that I know that you know what you're doing. The ethics and standards is very, very high. And once you've completed the certificate, then you can go on to Ubiquity University and do your master's or doctorate thesis. And I know Ubiquity was advising that if you are planning to do the practitioner certificate, or if you've already done the practitioner certificate, sign up to their creative writing, dissertation writing course, even while you're doing the animal communication course, because that will give you the grounding so that you can start working towards that postgraduate degree from the word go. I hope that all makes sense and is
yeah,
how you understand it works.
yeah. Basically, the format is very simple, everyone. You take all your learning, all your courses from Wynter and various faculty that she's assembled. And once you complete her process and have demonstrated to her satisfaction that you're capable of, real mastery in interspecies communication, then that certificate constitutes the body of the work that you need to complete. And then you apply to Ubiquity University. And then what you do at Ubiquity is you simply write your dissertation, either for a master's degree or for a PhD degree if you already have a master's degree, or you can do a joint master's PhD degree, whatever it is that you want. So you not only become an animal communicator, interspecies communicator, but you begin through your dissertation to add to the body of work that is at world-class PhD level. You're adding to the body of work. You're adding to human knowledge, because every dissertation needs to be an original contribution to human thought. And just imagine how many doctoral dissertations have been done on chemical engineering or nuclear war. There's almost no graduate level dissertations been done anywhere in the world in interspecies communication. There's none anywhere on extraterrestrials. Here we're having the biggest moment in the history of the human race. Not a single university in the world is addressing this issue.
No.
It's unbelievable. We heard earlier today from the guy in Sweden that finally an obscure university in Sweden, the University of Lund, is allowing one course on the scientific possibility of ETs. But that shows you just how far we have to go in the work that Wynter and Linda and others of you are pioneering. The culture has no bandwidth or category of cognition for what it is that we're talking about. I was on a call yesterday with some colleagues, Wynter, and I was talking about what Veda Austin was doing on water. That's showing that not only will water is able to communicate, water is a portal through which you can communicate with other beings and your ancestors, but water is capable of representing communication through what they're calling hydroglyphs. And when I finished my presentations, one of the people on the call said, "Garrison, you sound like you're on LSD." So, as T.S. Eliot says in the Four Quartets, reality is a minority interest program. And that's very important to know. That's why we're so thrilled, everyone, to be part this partnership, because we're literally breaking new ground. So if you want to be a pioneer in human evolution, this is a unique opportunity for you. And in a moment here, I'll put the link to our program in the chat. But let me ask you just a couple other questions, Wynter. One small one was about the elephant. Has the elephant been released, or is it still in a holding pattern? What's the status?
It's still in the process. So there's permission has been given to release him, but now he's quite old and frail. Not old in elephant years, but he's been through a lot. So all the experts are designing a way of transporting him to his new place. Because he was actually a wild calf. He was 2 years old when he was captured from the wild, and he was first taken into the circus for 20 years, and then he was put into the zoo for 20 years. So you can imagine what he's been through. So all the experts are discussing how best to do this. And I was so thrilled when they brought me in to speak on his behalf, and they're taking it very seriously. That's how much this work has grown, that we do have scientists and vets, experts in their fields, asking what does the animal want, and believing that it's possible for us to hear.
Yeah.
So
now, how are you received as a Intuitive Interspecies Communicator. How are you received by the authorities, controlling the zoo, who are pretty much locked into the scientific
Mm.
reductionist paradigm? How do they receive you? How do you interact with them?
So, what is interesting, I had to kind of go in undercover because the organization that has asked me to work for them didn't want the zoo to know
Yeah.
that I was involved.
Don't tell them who
So,
you really are.
yeah, but it's the great thing is that the wildlife organization that I'm working with, and is involved with all these experts, they trust because they have seen my work, and I've done other work with them before with other wildlife issues with elephants and rhinos and baboons. So the work speaks for itself, and that's what I wanted to also share at some stage, is that we don't need to prove that this works anymore. In the old days
Right.
we felt like, oh, we have to prove it, but we don't. There's so much evidence
Exactly.
that it makes a difference.
Yeah.
So
I have one final question, but I want to note that Kala Perkins, who's a cosmologist, everyone who's presented on Humanity Rising, says that there's lots of academic conversations in what she calls astrobiology on possibilities of other life forms, and that Lund University is where the European Astrobiology School is based. And that's important. What Kala is saying, there's, the search for extraterrestrial life. There's lots of scientific explorations with the James Webb Telescope and all of that out there looking for extraterrestrial life outside of planet Earth, and the possibility of finding water in some exoplanet off of some star system. Everybody's excited about that. But to take in that those extraterrestrial life forms aren't out there, they're here, is a shift in consciousness that the prevailing scientific paradigm is not yet capable of absorbing and beginning rigorous academic research about. And that's why the ET program that Ubiquity has with New Paradigm Institute, like the one in Intuitive Interspecies Communication with Animaltalk Africa, is really breaking new ground. We're explicitly talking about the extraterrestrials who are here on planet Earth and how we can understand who they are, what their agendas are, and how we can communicate with them. So I just want to make that clarification. But Keala is absolutely correct. A lot of universities and programs engaged in the search for extraterrestrial life outside, way off there in the galaxy. It's very interesting. So the final question, Wynter, for today is I just wanted to ask a personal question about your own spiritual development. And if you could just sort of talk to us about who you were as Wynter Worsthorne pre interspecies communication, how that experience over time has shaped your spirituality and your sense of how the world is. I think that would be important for anyone considering your certificate, because what you're offering is not just knowledge. What you're offering is a portal to transformation, to the transformation of our consciousness. And that's the ultimate revolution that humanity needs to undergo. So would love, as we close, for you to tell your story from the vantage point of the evolution of your own spiritual awareness and consciousness.
thank you, Jim. Well, I think I was one of the lucky humans to be born to a mother who understood a lot of this stuff. And she would take me off to transcendental meditation classes when I was 12 years old. She had a great, great love for animals. She was a healer. She worked with plants and oils, essential oils. She was an aromatherapist way before her time. And that grounded me in this work. So I always knew that animals could understand us. I always knew that, but from my experience growing up with a house full of cats and dogs. And I always had dreams of lions. Lions were my thing, even though we never actually, my mom wasn't a type to go to the bush and camp. She was a domestic animal person, but I think she gave me the grounding and the understanding. As you can imagine, I was a very creative child. I took that creativity into my career after school. I studied graphic design and made a living painting pictures of animals, animal portraits, wildlife pictures. And even as I started working on that creative field, I could feel, I could sense this connection, but I didn't understand it. So when I learned about animal communication and what actually brought me to this particular kind of communicating with animals was a visit to a Sangoma, which is an African medicine person, traditional healer. And he told me, Wynter, the ancestors are asking you to wake up. And that was like, growing up in apartheid South Africa, we weren't exposed to the traditional knowledge. There was nothing. We weren't allowed to know about it. There was the Witchcraft Act, it was called, banning all traditional knowledge. So that was, about 30 years of it, 30, 40 years. And so it was only when I was an adult that this started coming to light. And I was a little bit sort of nervous about this, but I started exploring it. And again, my mom said, yes, I know about it. Here's this book by Credo Mutwa. Read it, called Indaba, My Children, which was a band in apartheid South Africa. So I had this privilege of being exposed to that other world before I actually entered into this interspecies communication. But working directly with the animals, them showing me the world as they see it, just as you said, it's a portal to another dimension. Because then I started understanding my dreams. I started understanding the way nature works, what nature needs, the balance. How can we bring ourselves into balance? It's difficult to put into words. You have to experience it because we all experience it in a different way. But it's that spiritual journey. I feel a divine before that I didn't have before, but through the animals, I have a divine connection because they are connected to the divine in all times. I hope that explains.
Beautiful.
Where I am.
Beautiful.
Okay.
And that's what gives all of us the capacity to do what Credo Mutwa says. I love the image when you were telling his story, that if you can look in the face of your fear the same way you look in the face of your lover, that's what gives you the power to sense the divine, as you're putting it. So beautiful, because that's where we all end up, is the feeling of the intimacy of the divine.
Yeah. And for me, the animals showed me that,
Yeah.
And I think nature and the animals are inviting us to be in that space. They can't wait. They're celebrating. They really are celebrating that we are finally starting to wake up. Yeah.
Well, Wynter, thank you so much. Listen, before we close, just tee us up for what we can expect for tomorrow.
Okay, so tomorrow our guest is Dr. Saskia van Diest. She works with a concept called eco-fluency, so being fluent in the language of the eco. And she talks about communicating with other beings, other species, from the trees and plants to microbiomes, and our connection with all that is. So she's going to explain a lot about that. I think it's very exciting. I've known her for a number of years, but I don't know her work intimately. So I'm really looking forward to that as well. And I think that's going to be a lovely gathering tomorrow.
Thank you. Are you able to join the after chat for a few minutes?
Yes, I will. I've got about 15, 20 minutes that I can,
Cool.
and because
Well,
I
we'll
know there
bring
were
it
a
to
lot
a
of
close.
questions that I wasn't able to answer.
Yeah.
So
We'll end it right there, everyone. Wynter will join the after chat. You'll find the link Stan just put in the chat. You all received the chat link in your Zoom reminders for today. So that will bring us to completion. Thank you all very much. We'll see you tomorrow for the third of 5 sessions on intuitive interspecies communication. Thank you, Wynter. Beautiful.
thank you.
Beautiful.
Thank you so much. I'm loving these sessions. Thank you very much, Jim.
Bye, everyone.